Today, I messed up by accidentally revealing my boyfriend's mom's infidelity. Obligatory. The story actually happened about a year ago. I, 18 female at the time, was dating a boy named Jacob, 18 male at the time. His father, early 60s, was a mechanic, and his mom, mid-50s, was a stay-at-home mom. They were a pretty typical white suburban family in the South, and had asked Jacob if they could meet me even though we had only been dating for a month. At the dinner, I met his mom, dad, older brother, older sister, and her newborn daughter. The dinner went well, and I was chatting about my volunteer work at my college's blood drive, to which his father explains that his doctor told him he was O negative and a universal blood donor. My boyfriend mentions he is also O, but his siblings casually mentioned they are both AB. I don't think anything of it because my boyfriend had mentioned that his mom was married once before and was widowed. The following conversations went like this. Me: "Oh, that's really cool. You're a really rare blood type. If you don't mind me asking, is your mom's blood type A and your dad's B, or your dad's A and mom's B?" Older sister: "What do you mean? He is O," gesturing to my boyfriend's father. Me: "Oh, I know. I was just asking about your bio father, but of course you don't have to answer if you don't want to." I then noticed his mom getting really pale, and it was in that moment I realized I messed up. Older brother: "What do you mean bio father?" Me: "I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything by it." Jacob's dad got really quiet, and looking at his wife's face, he knew instantly. I look over to Jacob, who I think was starting to put the full picture of what was happening together. Jacob's dad: "Are you saying they're not my biological kids?" Because my wife swore up and down in marriage counseling, by marriage counseling they mean with a pastor, that they were my kids and she would never cheat on me. Yeah, turns out she never had any kids from her previous marriage. Jacob's mom: "I would never cheat on you. Older sister and older brother are your kids." Jacob's dad: "Opie, why do you think they're not my kids?" I tried to excuse myself because it was very clear the cat was out of the bag, and with a quick Google search for my boyfriend, he starts cussing out his mom. She starts to sob and apologizes over and over again, and I am forced to explain 9th grade biology to his father about the fact that the only kids he could have produced were with the blood type O, A, or B, but absolutely not AB. So Jacob was the only one with the possibility of being a son. They all start screaming at one another. Older sister eventually leaves because her newborn is screaming too. His mom goes and locks herself in the bedroom, but his older brother follows her screaming, asking who his real father is. My boyfriend is trying to figure out if his dad still wants to be their father, and I eventually have a friend come pick me up. Yeah, we broke up shortly after, but not after figuring out that none of the kids produced from the marriage was his. They found out via paternity tests, and for sure weren't his kids, and they divorced soon after. Edit: for those asking how they knew their blood types, Jacob donated blood for the blood drive at our school. His sister just had a baby, so she was probably informed during pregnancy. Jacob's dad was told by his doctor for, probably, underlying medical reasons, I don't know, and wasn't ever really close to his family after that for obvious reasons. And I don't know how his brother knew. Now for the top comments. That's an amazing life experience. Not many people get to be the catalyst for a family disintegrating by holding an impromptu high school science lecture. Wicked. I second this. It may have felt uncomfortable in the moment, but knowing science and explaining it to people who don't know science is never a screw-up. This is exactly why our bio class stopped having the students compare their blood to their parents' blood for labs. Apparently, there was always one kid every year who was not biologically connected to the dad. I wonder how many people will actually see a family implode. We had a front row seat. What do you mean front row seat? This lucky/unlucky lady was driving. Steered headfirst into the family, then got out of the car and ran away unscathed. Damn, all his kids were his after 18 years? Yeah, that might break me. Legitimately break me. Definitely would still love the crap out of my kids, but I think something would break inside me. The knowing that my entire reproductive life, due to 60, is a lie and the opportunity to father biological kids is long past. I couldn't talk to my soon-to-be ex-spouse again. Then I would need some therapy. I found out right around the time my little princess turned 1-year-old. I had some doubts beforehand, but didn't pursue it because I was scared of the truth. Turns out she wasn't mine, and it truly did break me and put me into a dark self-ending place in my life that I'm thankful I made it out of. There's nothing more devastatingly heart-wrenching than finding out a child whom you love so much is not yours. She's now 5 years old, and she will always be my princess and my daughter to me, no matter who or what anyone says. Her real father is in her life now, but she still calls me daddy. I have an older daughter too that is for sure my blood, and they are sisters. So I will always be part of her life and will never turn my back on her for her mother's infidelity. None of this was her fault. She is an innocent child, and she is nothing short of a blessing to me regardless of blood. Next story is titled, My 22 female dad 50 male found out my brother 13 male isn't his and is demanding that I participate in a paternity test. My brother has been having serious medical issues. I don't want to get into details, but in the midst of one of his hospitalizations, it was found out my brother is not my dad's son. My dad was devastated. I left the house and went radio silent for a lot of days. My mom, 47 female, knew that I was bound to talk to her sometime soon, so she admitted that she had an affair with a boss when she started working for him at age 23 and stopped working for him at 35 when he retired. The man died a few years ago, and my mom said she was sure that I was my father's child. My dad pretty much told everybody in the extended family about what we found out, so things were already starting to become a war with relatives saying their pieces. Their separation got even more bitter when my mom decided to be the one to serve divorce papers on my dad. From what I got out of the two of them, my mom thought my dad was going to punish my brother by denying him funds for medical care, and she said for him, she needed to be the one to say her piece first. I've tried to reach out to my dad and offer him my emotional support. I noticed he was looking unkempt and looked to not be eating well, so I offered to go stock up his apartment with the groceries. I also offered my financial support because I was grateful he put me through Vanderbilt, even though we're not rich or upper middle class, and I've gotten a good job in finance and good paying internships because of it. He's been cold about all my overtures, and would use our calls to rant about every aspect of his life. He yelled at me through the phone once, when I mentioned that my brother said I missed my dad and sends his love. It has been hell, especially because I feel like I have to take sides. My parents' credit is terrible due to medical bills and other expenses, but if I give money to my mom, then I'll be favoring her over my dad, and I'm of course mad at my mom for hurting my dad. My dad called me the other day. It's one of the few times he called me instead of the other way around, and he said that he thinks that he has to know, so he was asking me if I'd go with him to take a paternity test. He told me that he always thought it didn't look like him, but my brother out of us two looked more like him. He texted me about this many times after his call. I have to be honest, I want a good relationship with my dad again, and I know if it turns out I am his daughter that it would improve. But I'm afraid of the alternative, and I don't know if I want to know. And my dad also admitted he doesn't know if he wants to know sometimes either. But let's just get it over with, even if the results will hurt us. What do I do? I'm afraid we'll both regret a lot of the actions we take in this period. I also feel sad because this is still my dad, and I would be devastated if our bond would be nothing to my dad if he finds out I'm not his biological kid. Now for the top advice. If it was my dad, I'd do the test. I'd want to know too. OP, your mom had a 12-year-long affair. That's longer than most marriages, and there's no way your dad won't need a paternity test. Your mom had the nerve to divorce first to say her piece first. Essentially, she never cared for your father. Your dad loves you and his son. The hate and rejection he may express is more to do with the fact your mother humiliated, debased, and lied to him for what is essentially his entire life, and regarding the things he cared for the most. Every time your brother called your father dad, every birthday they spent together. Throughout your mother's pregnancy, while your brother was sick, while they spent time together as father and son, your mother knew the truth, and I'd bet her boss knew too. Your dad sacrificed time, effort, mental well-being, and considerable money to support his family. And the only reason the affair stopped is because your mom was effectively dumped. What could be more humiliating to your dad? He has been played for a fool most of his life. So if he lashes out at you and your brother, it's because he is vulnerable, hating that he loves what was used against him. If he carries on as normal, he feels he is giving your mother what she wants without her ever receiving justice. Your paternal grandparents, uncles, aunts, your cousins were all duped. If your brother has children, they also won't be biologically related to him. Your mother has carried out an intergenerational deceit. Even your brother was left in the dark. Has he been told? Give your money to your dad and tell him to use it for your brother. Cutting out your mother from the equation will make it more palatable for him. Has your mom shown any remorse? Guilt? Regret? How does she justify what she did? What consequences has she faced? This entire situation is due to the selfish actions of one individual. Her actions have damaged your father's relationships, but he still loves you and your brother. His ties to you are stronger than her lies. In my opinion, your best bet at maintaining a relationship with him, regardless of the results of any test, is to unilaterally and immediately cut your mom out of your life before the test. He needs to see you take his feelings seriously. Empathize first and foremost with your father. Show him you care, and he will be more amenable to helping your brother, especially if your mom pays a price for her betrayal. He deserves the right to know as you do. You both only know the lies your mother has told you, and this is the key bit so far. Specifically, she had what reads as a 12-year affair. 12 years? And shows no remorse. Most of your dad's entire adult life and half his family are a lie. He deserves to know. And so do you. I agree, but also want to add, OP, you gotta go to therapy, and so do your dad and your brother. I'd suggest telling him you'll take the test if he commits to going to therapy, which you will pay for, including a requirement that he go to some therapy sessions before you take the test, including maybe a joint therapy session with you, where you can tell him you understand how hard this is, and you love him no matter what, and want to be in his life no matter what. And you need to go to therapy before you take the test too. Now for the last story. I messed up by hooking my girlfriend up with a job at a company I work for. Happened years ago, but I was told to post this here. My girlfriend, at the time, and I were dating for just shy of 6 years. We were high school sweethearts and still in school. She'd always struggled with jobs and keeping them, and since we lived together, I usually had to pick up the slack. I was working as an assistant manager at a video game retail store at the time. Probably not hard to figure out which one. It was honestly an easy job as long as you gave little effort. Pre-orders here, couple of warranty sales there. And as my girlfriend loved video games more than I did, I had a brilliant idea to get her a job. She's an attractive girl, while 80% of our customers were neckbeards who hardly get to interact with women. Should be easy for her to make sales. There's no way she can mess this up, I said, confidently to myself. There is a policy as of most companies that people in relationships can't work at the same location. No problem. We have 12 stores in our district that are within a 5-mile radius. They seriously put these stores on every other block. I do a little digging and hook her up at a neighboring store that had a vacant position. She would also be working with the head store manager of the district, indirectly one of my bosses. Few weeks in, and it's going great. It took me about a year to get moved up, she dozen weeks. I'm not a self-conscious person, so I didn't care. Plus, she could help pick up her half of the bills. Here's where I started to realize I messed up. Girlfriend comes driving in with a brand new car. Considering we were living paycheck to paycheck, I was pretty upset. I asked her where she got the car from, and she told me I've been saving up. BS, but okay. I loved her, so as long as she's happy, I'm happy. Next comes in with write-ups. I started getting write-ups and customer complaints left and right. I'm a very good employee, and I very rarely make anyone upset. And I couldn't even find where these customers were coming from. Even though my performance was the best out of most employees, I was starting to fear for my job. And as to be predicted, I ended up getting fired. I tried to fight it, but I live in Texas, and the rules are that companies can fire anyone at any time for any reason. I'm absolutely crushed. I turned to my girlfriend for emotional support, only to find her extremely distant. She dumped me days later. Double whammy. I loved her for 6 years. She told me she felt this way for a while. Things are the same. I'm absolutely heartbroken. I'm angry, depressed, jobless. Felt like my life got flipped upside down. 1 week later, her Facebook status put her in a relationship with her boss. My boss. Not sure when it happened, but he bought her a car and then got me fired. Turns out, all the customer complaints about me originated from that store somehow. Total BS. I set her up to absolutely screw me over and to bone my boss. Edit. Perhaps the biggest screw-up is the fact I didn't sue. I was such an emotional wreck from everything that it didn't even cross my mind. But I'm doing pretty well for myself now, and whatever money I'd get would be worth bringing her to court for. Just the thought of seeing her sends chill down my spine. Now for the top comments before the little update. Damn, like she couldn't just leave you? For what reason did that guy have to get you fired first? I can't imagine how you were feeling after that. She probably got his old job since she couldn't suck up to her boss and work at the same location as him. Damn, now I'm sad. For those asking why sad, I appreciate that Opie's doing better now and I'm happy for him, truly. I wrote the original comments prior to edits detailing his happiness and moving on. Not only that though, I'm going through something similar to his story. I'm sure the moment of impact was awful and the suffering was intense at the time. Still, I'm glad things have gotten better. She sounds crazy. Better it happened now than later, when you were married and she tries to take half your stuff. Yeah, this happened for a reason, and he dodged a bullet there. Update. A couple of you guys were wondering, but they dated a few months and broke it off. Neither of them work for the company anymore. A little detail I forgot to mention that when she came to take her stuff from our place, he was helping carry the stuff to her car. That was probably the most gut-wrenching moment for me. Both of them are POS. I really appreciate all the positive feedback. I've been mostly over it, but the love really helps. Some of you guys are asking where she's now. She's doing alright. She's engaged to one of my old high school friends. Also slightly suspicious. Still driving the same car too, from the looks of it. I'm doing pretty well for myself. And if there's any happy ending to this, is that I'm genuinely happier than I've ever been in my life. Again, I really appreciate the positive messages. Reliving and retelling the story made me angry and I missed a few details. I can't prove that he bought her a car, but I was pretty aware of her finances, and she couldn't afford a new car without significant help. It wasn't a fancy car. It was a new Prius that was worth about $18,000 in addition to trading in her old car. And the rumor around the block was that he did in fact help her. I was not a perfect boyfriend. I got upset at silly things. I could have been more attentive, but I never raised my voice, and I was very loyal. The course of when she got promoted to when she got the car was roughly 3 to 4 months. The separation and firing happened about 2 months after that. I didn't clarify that detail. The boss was a DM in training, recently got promoted, and the kind of guy that would spend money to impress a girl. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter to go ask her bio family for money? My daughter, 26, is adopted. She started meeting her bio family after she had her son 3 years ago. I never went against her decision to have her bio family in her life. I've always encouraged her to give them a chance, especially her bio mom. But I noticed I was being gradually pushed to the side. Not just me, but the family too. No more Sunday dinners, no more trips, no more pictures, and not even weekly phone calls like we used to have. I figured she was busy being a mom, and she confirmed that, but her Facebook page showed me otherwise. There were tons of pictures of her visiting her bio family, and tons of pictures with my grandson. I realized she was making excuses to skip family time with us to be with her bio family more. Whenever her dad and I brought this up with her, she turned it into an argument in which she'd call us too sensitive or too jealous, or not giving her space to get to know her bio family better. We had one big argument and she never spoke again. After, she said no matter how much love and eagerness we show her bio family's love is greater and more natural. She stayed gone for months until her husband Thomas, who's always been struggling with heart condition, gotten worse. He is in the end stage of heart failure and is required to have an LVAD implant, but my daughter cannot afford it. Lately, she's been coming over a lot to talk about Thomas's condition. We do what we can to comfort her, but she brought up the piece of land we have for my 14-year-old son's education. I refused to even have this conversation, but she kept pushing for us to sell the land and help her get the device. I said I was sorry, but that will go to her brother, who sees me and her dad as his parents, and isn't willing to replace us like she did, and then told her to go ask her bio family for the money. She was shocked, and said that she couldn't believe how conditional my love for her was, and that I care more about being petty than my grandson's future with both parents, not a widowed mother. She started crying, calling us unsupportive, and that this is the time we show her we're true family, instead of showing conditional love and act petty at her husband's expense. I said I'm sorry about Thomas, but that is all I had to say. She left and we haven't heard from her since then. My husband says Thomas and our grandson are innocent, and maybe we should help out now then settle our conflict later. But that is a lot of money that I feel I'm not obligated to give, even without the whole drama from her bio family. I'm upset, but I don't resent my daughter as she's struggling with a lot. But at this point, I feel like she's only keeping us around for money, given that we paid for many things in the past while her bio family did nothing. Now for the top comments. Not a hole. She's the one showing conditional love. And if a bio family's love is greater and more natural, then why aren't they paying? I want to be really petty and say that greater, more natural love wasn't enough for them to keep her and raise her, but I know that's a low blow. At this point, I would not tell the lad to give her money. She has shown that she only wants money now, so it's on her to figure it out. Most states have some form of welfare/social services to help gravely ill people, so she should explore that option. I feel very sad for you and your grandson. You loved her and raised her, and now your relationship has been reduced to a transactional state. She really should be ashamed of herself. Money was the only reason she started speaking to her parents again. She knew that the money existed and wanted to use her parents' love for her as a weak point to get the money for herself/her husband. Like every con artist, she did her groundwork first, pouring on a sob story, getting the parents reinvested in her life. Then she moved on to the con. She hit them with an ultimatum. Give me the kids' college fund or else I will say that your love is conditional. Her father is falling for the con. Fortunately, mom has recognized that it's daughter's love that's conditional, and that even if they were willing to sacrifice the brother's future to buy her love, it wouldn't work. She's already chosen her buy family. Opie, don't let your husband try to buy her love. You can offer to help her with fundraisers, but that college money is non-negotiable. She won't want your help though. She only wants the cash. You'd end up being without her love and being without money for son's education too. He shouldn't suffer because his parents fell for his sister's con and sold his future to try buy his sister's love. My father tries to buy my sister's love, and it breaks my heart because she hasn't visited him in 10 plus years and only calls to ask for money and uses her daughter as an excuse. Opie, please don't let your husband buy her love. It will only end up hurting him and you in the long run, while the daughter continues to use and use without any actual love and care in return. I'm very curious about the reason and terms for her adoption, but I've noticed a trend in AITA posts where adopted children find their birth family after they become adults, then ditch the people who raised them. It's quite heartbreaking. Daughter's birth family didn't raise her for a reason. Opie did. Cutting them off and then asking for money is horrible on her part. Not today, Hall. Love is always conditional. Treat someone like dirt and they will stop loving you. Holy crap. That hit me hard for some reason. You're absolutely right. People love to say that it's unconditional, yet it's simply not at the end of the day. This is a tough one, but your daughter seems a bit manipulative and demanding, so not stay home. Or desperate. Or entitled. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my sister her bi family are not on my wedding invite list anymore? I'm 1 of 5 and we're all adopted. Some through foster care, others are infants. My sister was adopted as an infant and reconnected with her bi family 5 years ago. Growing up as the only 2 girls in the family, we were close. And then when she found her bi parents and bi sisters, it all changed. I pulled back a lot when I saw her post about finally having sisters on social media. I ignored her for months. And then when I found the strength to talk to her, I was honest that her attitude around them does hurt me. That being discarded and dismissed as a sister hurt. She apologized, we went to therapy together, and eventually introduced the rest of our family to her bi family. They get invited to family stuff now. And when I got engaged, she asked me if I would invite her bi family. I said sure, if she wanted. That was last year. Wedding isn't for many months yet, so no invites or anything. But my sister started talking about needing a bigger family section, needing to make sure the photographer can get a huge group into more intimate photos. I asked her what she meant. She said with her bio family. I said they weren't being included as family of mine. She told me they should be, but I said no. They were being invited as guests. We then had a fight about it. She accused me of mistreating them. She told me I was rude to them, that I never gave them a chance, and I resented them for existing. I told her no, but that didn't mean I was going to treat them like they're my family. She told me she would, and now she thinks I should. That I should show I don't hold any feelings about the past and what happened. I told her I wasn't willing to do what she wanted, and she told me that makes me an a-hole because it's not good to make her family feel like outsiders, and it shows a lack of love for her if I'm not willing to accept her family as my family. She sent me a long message afterward telling me they're important to her, and that they will always be her family, will always have that extra special connection to her, and that I need to be okay with that. And that it's on me to make that effort because I had a reaction I did when she first made contact and wrote the post. I considered everything and decided it would be better off not inviting them at all because she was never going to let it go. I told her I was no longer inviting them, and she tried to pick another fight with me, but I didn't engage. She told me I was behaving like a child and being an a-hole to her and them. Am I the a-hole? I don't understand her reasoning. Just because those are her bi family and she's close with them, it doesn't automatically make them your family. You already have your siblings and your parents. She really thinks your bi parents are now your second set of parents? If her bi family are reasonable people, there is no way they'd be insulted or upset for not being included in the family pictures. But they're being invited to one of the biggest events in your life. That is definitely not considered being mistreated. Info, how old is your sister? She needs to grow up and do it fast. What on earth is wrong with these people? If I was a part of OP's sister's bi family, I'd be ashamed of this behavior. Is she forgetting that they're her bi family but not yours? And to take this one step farther, if her bi parents are now your second set of parents, shouldn't they help foot the bill for the wedding? She clearly is not done working through some things related to being adopted. Adopted kid who is in touch with my own bi family here. While important to her, this is not her wedding. That she is making this a larger deal, and sounds likely to cause a commotion at your actual wedding, you are well within your rights to decide to no longer invite them. This also seems like a large number of people you will also be paying for to make your sister happy. Definitely not stay home. Honestly, with all the horror stories of adopted kids who find their bi family, the ones that gave them away, and suddenly decide that the parents and siblings who were there from the beginning are now somehow less important just because they don't share DNA, would put a lot of people off of adopting. Your sister's bi family is her bi family, not yours. And she shouldn't be berating you into giving them any role in your wedding than any other guest should get. There is a whole TikTok world of adoptees talking crap on their adoptive parents and saying adoption should never exist. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my cousin she doesn't get to call my wife a terrible mother when she had abandoned her child years ago? Alright, I'm gonna get right to it, folks. Yesterday, I went over to my mother's house to talk about the accident that happened with my 3-year-old, who tripped off the stairs and injured his knee while I was at work. He's fine, nothing serious, but my mother was freaking out and wanted me to tell her what happened, details. The family was there, so I explained what happened, and my female cousin then chimed in and said, "Oh my god, where the hell was this boy's mother? Was she even home?" I said she was, but was in the kitchen when he fell and couldn't prevent it. My cousin then leaned back and said, "How could she? I cannot imagine leaving my 3-year-old unattended for so long. What a terrible mother your wife is, honestly." I'm fuming at this point, so I look at her and ask if she is serious, and she gives me the most dense look I've ever seen. I told her she had no right to call my wife a terrible mother after she, my cousin, abandoned her kids in foster care years ago. She looks at me grudgingly and tells me that that was years ago when she was too young and not ready to be a mother. Besides, her parents made her give away her son. But I told her that is when she failed as a mother, because she essentially didn't fight for her kid and abandoned him so easily. She lashed out at me saying her circumstances were difficult then, and I cannot blame her. But if she's to commit to be a mom, which she will in the future, she's 22 by the way, she will step up and parent her kids, which is something my wife needs to be doing instead of spending time in the kitchen for her internet clout. We argued back and forth, and she ended up leaving the room crying after I said she's a failure of a mother if she thinks my wife is terrible then. My mother berated me for my unnecessary cruelty and having a habit of bringing up my cousin's unpleasant past to win an argument. I said that wasn't true, as she was insulting my wife's motherhood, but my mother agreed my wife was being neglectful towards our son, and that she needed to focus less on her Facebook blogs and more on family. I ended up arguing with her too, then left. My wife got involved in the argument, after my mother called her to berate her and told her to tell me to apologize to my cousin for what I said. Now for the comments. Not today, home, but going forward, you need to put your family on an information diet. Your mother does not need to know every bump and bruise, and even bigger injuries don't have to be detailed for her. There was a small accident, everybody's fine is enough. If there's truly an issue with your wife needing to be more diligent with your child's care, that is something that needs to be addressed, but your mother doesn't need to have any part in that. I'm glad your kiddo is going to be okay. I love info diet. My mother's on that. All answers, everyone is fine, school is good, and they're all doing well. How are you doing? Then she'll talk about herself. She's an arc and lives that. She gets no info to use against me or my family later. I cut her off for about 6 months, and it was hard on my dad. So now it's very much info diet with low contact. It's working so far. Your cousin is a hypocrite, and kids are fast. I can't even pee without hearing a crash from something my 4-year-old did. Not today, home. There are a few people in here suggesting a baby gate. My now 4-year-old completely destroyed every baby gate we had. Even the ones nailed it to the walls, at just 2 years old. If it works for you, great. Some kids have Herculean strength though. It's like the child-proof medicine bottles that kids can open but adults can't. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband he overreacted over a piece of cake? Hi. So my husband, male 32, and I, female 24, are expecting our first baby together. I'm 7 months in. My in-laws are lovely people. My mother-in-law had some not-so-major fights with her husband, and he has been staying with us for a few days. Her birthday was yesterday, and because of her emotional and mental state, my husband decided to throw her a surprise party and invite his siblings. He got everything ready, and I was home alone when the cake arrived from the bakery. To give some info, the cake was big and had my mother-in-law's favorite flavor, strawberry. I asked my husband for some snack as I was craving really badly, but he didn't get them. To be honest, I got a bit tempted whenever I looked at the cake and decided to cut a small piece of it. I didn't think it was a big deal, until my husband saw it and flipped out asking why I ruined the cake and cut a piece of it. I said I was sorry, but was craving something sweet. He said that was supposed to be his mother's birthday cake, and I embarrassed him by taking a piece of it instead of waiting till the party in just a few hours. I said I should have been the one to handle it if he didn't think I was up to the task, but he went off saying he couldn't believe how childish I was with zero impulse control, to be blaming him instead of checking myself and not being supportive. This made me upset because there were a ton of other stuff he asked me to do and I did it. He kept arguing, saying I just cost him the piece of cake, and an utter embarrassment when his mom sees that I ate from her cake. I looked at him and told him he overreacted over a piece of cake, and asked if a piece of cake was more important than his son, and that I was sure his mom will understand that I took my piece of cake in advance because I really couldn't help myself. But he said this wasn't about me, and I have to just admit I messed up and ruined his work, then went upstairs. I refused to come off the room to celebrate after he told me to stay there, and I explained to his mom what happened, and she didn't say anything, though I noticed she was bothered. He keeps telling me to apologize, otherwise he won't speak to me nor acknowledge my presence in the house. He asked if a piece of cake was more important than his son. Stop trying to manipulate him. Your unborn son did not want the cake. You did. You know good and well that if someone cut a piece of your birthday cake before you even got a chance to see it, you would have a fit. You're the a-hole. For real. That line bothered me the most as it was such a stretch and 100% manipulative. Also, is Opie 5-year-old? Who just can't control themselves around birthday cake, and doesn't understand how bad of etiquette it is to take a piece before the person celebrating their birthday even gets to see it. Opie owes some apologies. During my 8.5 months of pregnancy so far, and all of my cravings, I've never once thought of myself before others, waking my boyfriend at 2 a.m. for ice cream, eating someone's cake before the event, etc. And my baby is fine and healthy. The fact that Opie attempted to manipulate her husband and guilt him is disgusting. You're the a-hole big time. Reminds me of the Opie who ate the cake her significant other specifically made for her to eat, and into Denise's birthday caterpillar cake because, tee-hee, the baby wanted cake. Girl, please. Your greedy, selfish self wanted cake and decided that your wants and needs come before everyone else. Being pregnant doesn't mean your crap doesn't suddenly stink. Honey, you tripping if you think you are not the a-hole here. Apologize and be done with us. Your husband is absolutely right. You lack impulse control and you not only embarrass him, you embarrassed yourself. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she's the reason I'll never adopt? I, 30 female, have 3 bio siblings. 37 male, 36 male, and 33 female, and an adoptive sister, 31 female. My sister, who I will call Becky's bio mom, is my mom's cousin. The story of Becky getting adopted by my parents was basically her bio parents were addicts that just came one day out of the blue for a visit, then abandoned her at our house. She was 5 weeks old. For a few weeks, they tried to get my cousin's family to take her, but those a-holes didn't want the shame of a baby with medical issues that was born out of wedlock. My parents fell in love with Becky, and the rest was history. Thankfully, all Becky really needed was love and a good home. She beat a lot of odds and leads a healthy, successful life. My parents never hid the fact Becky was adopted. She's biracial, and we all learned about her heritage growing up. Everything was perfect, until her parents reached out when she was 22. They were clean and wanted a relationship. In the space of a few months, she became a different person. It was like she hated us for taking her away from her bio parents. And as soon as she finished college and got the €20,000 check my parents gifted her, it's a startup we all got. She ghosted us and sent a letter to my parents telling them that if they ever try to contact her again, she will file a restraining order. She got married, and none of us even knew. Her mother passed away when she was 26, which led her father to relapse that unfortunately died 8 months later. After that, Becky reached out. My parents welcomed her back with open arms, but I still can't. Which leads to now. Me and my husband recently had a baby via IVF after 6 years trying. 5 natural. I brought my son to meet the family tonight, and after dinner all of us girls were in the living room. I brought up how he was worth everything, explaining my struggles, and that I'm gonna start naturally trying soon so he will have a sibling. Becky made a comment about why we didn't look into adoption since the world was already overpopulated, and I told her, honestly we thought about it, but after all the crap you pulled, I'm afraid you're the reason I will never adopt. Becky yelled at me to get over it already, then left. And my mother said I shouldn't have spoken to her like that, so in the end I ended up leaving early too. My siblings are on my side, but my parents are extremely mad. Now for the top comments. Not stay home, because if her bio parents were still alive, she wouldn't even be around y'all right now. Becky straight up acted like an adversary by threatening a restraining order. It's always sad to hear when adopted children raised in loving households choose their birth parents over the ones who raised them. Becky also asked a question she shouldn't have if she wasn't prepared to hear the answer. She knew she caused a great deal of pain and anger. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why Opie prefers not to adopt. I'm sure it was hard to hear. It's quite possible she struggled with being adopted, especially considering she's biracial. But she chose to turn her back on her family, cut them out of her life entirely. It only came back because she lost her birth family. So Becky's using her family as backups and is upset that Opie has a problem with that? Tough. Becky needs to own up to what she did, make amends, and get into therapy. Opie might find some benefit in therapy as well. Not stay home. I hate adopted kids that turn on their parents who love them and raised them as soon as they find out their real parents want a relationship. She deserves it, honestly. Bio parents. The real parents are the people who raised them. I was adopted, and my mom referred to the woman who gave birth to me as my genetic mother. I love that term, as it is so much better than birth or bio parents. Not stay home. Did she ever apologize at least for what she did? To my parents? I honestly don't know. I was so hurt and angry because we were extremely close growing up. And with everything going on in my own life, I went low contact for a few weeks while everything was going on. But she did apologize to me about not inviting me to her wedding when she was drunk for my brother's birthday. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for calling my husband a bad father because he allows his adult daughter's birthday to overshadow Christmas every year? When I met my husband, James, he had a 14-year-old daughter, Ella. Ella and I never really bonded, as she doesn't really like people. James always told me to leave Ella alone and respect her boundaries. I do believe he took her boundaries too far in some cases, as Ella is now a 27-year-old woman who refuses to speak when she doesn't want to. I have a 13-year-old daughter, Ava. Their pregnancy was a surprise, and I know the timing is bad, that I got pregnant right around the time I met Ella. And honestly, I have always felt that James prefers Ella. Ella is a lot like him personality-wise, and it is very subtle. But I feel like he loves Ella more. Ella never accepted her sister or I, but I've made peace with that, because getting Ella to speak is literally like pulling teeth. Ava hates Ella, but she knows that she has to be civil to everyone. Ella's birthday is December 23rd, and as a result, James never made too big of a deal about Christmas. Her birthday always took priority. This became an issue when Ava was born. James had always promised Ella he would take her to Europe to her 16th birthday, and Ella was insistent it had to be on her actual birthday. So to Christmas when Ava was 2, he actually missed Christmas, and we had a first fight of our entire marriage. He also told Ella crazy things, like if a man doesn't make a big deal out of her birthday, to dump his ass, and that her birthday is much more important than Christmas. As a result, Ava complains every year that James cares more about Ella's birthday than about Christmas, and that she thinks Ella gets an unfair amount of money spent on her. Her birthdays are usually expensive, and 2 years ago she had a December wedding which James fully paid for. Even that Christmas, he refused to not do something elaborate for her birthday, and couldn't understand why Ava was annoyed. Also, Ella hosts a huge Christmas Eve which we're all invited to, but Ava and I didn't go, due to it mostly being her husband's family, so everything in December sometimes feel it is about Ella. This year, I feel bad, because I couldn't get Ava what she really wanted because it is out of stock. But Ella just had a baby and my husband bought her a ring with a baby's birthstone, which Ava knows about. Now Ella wants to go to Colorado for her birthday/Christmas Eve. James said he is going to go because he can drive back and be home by about 10. I finally got annoyed and asked if he thinks he spent a fair amount of money/time/energy on Ella versus Ava, and I said it makes every Christmas about Ella and her birthday. He said I was being unfair because Ella has never excluded me from her plans, though she's rude and doesn't talk to me either. Finally, I snapped at him that he is a bad father because one of his kids is a grown woman and one is not. He is now upset and says that was mean to say, and I just don't like Ella and he tries his best. I'm seeing a lot here that actually supports your husband's side. You really just don't like Ella, and you resent the energy that he puts into celebrating her birthday. I'm not seeing where it necessarily has to take away from Ava. Does he also make a big deal for Ava's birthday? This is missing from the post. Your husband bought a ring to celebrate Ella's child. That's nice. And it has nothing to do with the fact that you couldn't get Ava what she wanted for Christmas because it was out of stock. Trying to force your husband to ignore or downplay his daughter's birthday because it's 2 days before Christmas, and you seem to want him to entirely focus on his daughter with you isn't a good look. It really doesn't seem like he's neglecting Ava here from what you've written. You're the a-hole, sorry. Honestly, I'm leaning towards this too. Especially since Opie has yet to answer a single question about what he does for Ava. Maybe because she wouldn't admit he goes above and beyond for her too, and drops everything else to make sure she has a magical birthday? In fact, Opie only tells us what he does for Ella for Christmas. I see nothing what he does for Ava, so I can't tell if she is getting the same Christmas treatment as Ella. Because treating Ella for her birthday is not the same as treating her for Christmas. The only way to judge this is to know how he handles birthdays for both girls, and Christmas for both girls. It sounds to me like he doesn't do a lot for Christmas for either of them. He spends a lot of money on Ava, but it isn't personal. He tells me to plan/buy everything because he doesn't know what she wants. I know a lot of men do that, but he managed to know everything about Ella. You are accusing him of favoring one child over another, but it's clear that you've never liked your stepdaughter. He has 2 children. I have 1. Ella would have lost her mind if I ever tried to pretend she was my daughter, so I respect her boundaries, but he has 2 actual biological children. FYI, people, Opie hid in the comments that husband was a single father to Ella, due to what I can only assume to be an abusive bio-mom. Ella testified against her mother as a kid, and had to get a restraining order. No bloody wonder they're so close. He is her mom and dad. I don't even want to know what happened to her. She must have been traumatized. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting mad at my wife whenever she talks condescendingly about our son's work? So basically, my son is a professional aerial performer and is currently performing in this large and popular horror-themed circus where we live. I know I may be biased, but in my opinion, he's really good, and it's just amazing to watch him perform. Maybe a little scary sometimes, and sometimes I worry about him with some of the tricks and acts he does. My wife, however, will just tell people who works in the circus, never mentioning that he's an aerial performer, that he actually works independently and is basically a contractor, that he works with a very large and popular circus. Just that he works in a circus. Whenever we are out and she sees a clown, she will point at it and say, "Look, it's son's name." And it is very clear she looks down on him for what he does. She assumes he makes next to nothing and is poor. I know he's not. He doesn't make a crazy amount, but he makes enough to support himself well. This all came to a head when we were with some of her friends, and one of them asked if our son could entertain her kids at a birthday party, promising to pay him generously since he must be struggling. My wife laughed and responded with, "I'll see if it's free." I butted in saying, "You probably won't be able to since the birthday falls on a day when Popular Circus, which is where he works as a headline aerial act in, is fully booked because it's so close to the new year." Almost everyone there was shocked since all this info was new to them. My wife looked pissed and left. She sat in the car and texted me that she wants to leave. I stayed for about 20 minutes answering questions and showing them some videos. The woman who asked apologized, saying she was given the impression by my wife that our son was a struggling and failing cheap circus performer and wanted to help him. When I finally left and got in the car, my wife yelled at me, saying that I made her look like an idiot and a horrible mother in front of her friends. When we got home, she stormed out the car and locked herself in our bedroom crying loudly. She's been like this for almost an hour now, and I'm starting to feel awful and like an a-hole. I could have just left it alone. So am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. If telling the truth makes her look like a horrible mother, then she is one. Not the a-hole. You only told your friends your son's real occupation. Of course it didn't align with her descriptions of him, because she deliberately deprecated his value and his profession. She talked about him contemptuously and denied his hard work and career achievements. When you reveal the truth, it exposed her as an incompatible parent at best, an abolitionist of his job and accomplishments at worst. Her friends must have been stunned when he told them the truth. It was foreseeable that she'll be upset. Who wouldn't be? She deals with the backlash of her actions now and is prone to face social repercussions and accompanying prejudices as well. But she caused it. For the record, there's nothing wrong with clowns or low-ladder circus workers as well. They're not deemed any less. She shouldn't have said those things, even if they were correct. Also, there's nothing wrong with entertaining kids at birthday parties. It's an equitable side gig and easy made money. I hope you understand it, because it genuinely reads as you depict these workers as such and you didn't bother to clarify otherwise. I'm so sorry if it came across like I thought that way. I absolutely agree. The circus wouldn't be complete without them. You didn't make her look like a terrible mother. She did that herself. I've been into music my whole life. Neither of my parents have ever supported me or stood up for me when someone made a stupid remark. Yes, who doesn't speak to them that often nowadays? Well, maybe she shouldn't act like a horrible mom, in general all-around a-hat. Not stay home. Not stay home. Your wife is really out of order. Seems like she has a big problem with her son not conforming to her standards of success, but her shaming and belittling him to others is disgusting. Aerial performers are amazing. It's a shame she's not proud of his skills or success. Last story. Am I the a-hole for asking my dad to pay me back money I gave him because he said I was only lucky in finding a job? I, 25 female, live with my parents and little brother, male 13. For backstory, I give my parents money monthly to help with rent plus bills. I often treat them all to nice restaurants when I get a bonus, and even buy groceries and snacks for everyone to use at home. I have never been very studious, and I barely managed a degree that I have no interest in. I did not enjoy the field and never looked for work in it. Instead, I wanted to explore my options and tried a bunch of different jobs, some that didn't always pay well. Even then, I still contributed to the house and managed my own expenses. I was always into video games and my parents had a problem with it since I can remember, saying that it's not a girly thing to do and it won't get me anywhere. Well, about a year ago, I got a job as a small copywriter for a video game-based page. It didn't pay well at first, but I worked very hard, got a promotion, and I'm now even in charge of sales and collaborations, where I make some decent money in commissions. The other day, my dad was talking to my brother, and I was passing by and overheard their conversation. My dad told him he must study hard and get a real profession, and not to be like me because I just got lucky in finding a job related to video games, and it's not real work. Here's where I might be the a-hole. A while ago, my parents needed some money in an emergency, so I gave it to them out of my savings. I even said it is okay, they don't need to pay it back. But after hearing my dad say I got to where I am because of luck, I walked up to him and said, "Remember the money I gave you guys? I'm going to need you to pay it back when you can. You see, who knows when my luck ran out, and I might need the money." My dad got mad and said I was an a-hole for being so petty over a small comment I made, when I know he doesn't have the money to pay me back. What do you think, guys? Am I the a-hole? Not an a-hole. Perhaps you should save the money you've been giving your parents and move out on your own. I live with them because they need help with the bills and stuff. I'm planning on moving out next year, though. If they don't respect the job you have and the money you make, it shouldn't be helping to pay their bills. I get wanting to help them, but if they're going to continue to bite the hand that feeds them, you'll only be reinforcing the behavior by staying. How is that your problem? I mean, what if your luck runs out and you wasted all that time and money helping your parents out when they don't even appreciate or respect you? Stop paying rent, save your money and move out. Your parents are the a-holes. I wish you could see the face I'm making right now. You have to help support them while they insult you. Make him pay you back. Not stay home. Whatever the amount was, take it out of your rent. There's another comment here to make sure you don't end up in a relationship where the person insults you while demanding you support them because you're used to it. And that's something you should be watchful over.
Mother-in-law thinks I cheated on my dear husband because we are having a girl, then physically assaults me at 8 months pregnant. Original post. This is a long one, so strap in. I am 26 female and dear husband is 30 male. Mother-in-law is 70 years old. Her and father-in-law had my dear husband later in life as a last chance to have a kid. Dear husband has a name like John William Smith IV. The name has been passed down for literally generations. I will also mention, as it's important, that there has not been a girl born on his side of the family in more than 100 years. There's a huge running joke that the men in his family cannot produce female babies. So fast forward to our wedding day in 2017. I've had a pretty good relationship with mother-in-law up until this point. Wedding was great, beautiful ceremony, funny speeches, everything was great. Really, until it's the end of the night, and we are getting ready to go leave to enjoy our honeymoon suite, and she looks me dead in the eye and says, "Now go make us our John William Smith V." I nervously laughed and we departed. Well, ladies and gents, I indeed did make a beautiful baby with my dear husband over those 2 weeks, and who would have thought? A baby girl. Everyone was so shocked when we announced it was a girl, and most of the family denied it, up until the moment she was born. That's when the horrible comments started. Whenever dear husband isn't around, mother-in-law and her family members will make snarky comments like, "I wonder where she got that nose. It's definitely not dear husband's." For your info, my baby, as beautiful as she is strikingly and obviously my dear husband's. She genuinely looks more and more like him as the first year has gone by, and even more so approaching too. Well, as it would happen, we are now expecting our second baby. And yes, another girl. I begged dear husband not to tell mother-in-law the gender when we found out, as I just wanted to enjoy a bit more of this pregnancy before she ruined it. I had decided to keep the mean comments his mother made to me about our first daughter to myself, as she's old and in poor health, and I felt guilty about potentially ruining their relationship when she probably doesn't have many years left to be around. I figure I'll add here that mother-in-law isn't dying or anything, she's just had extremely poor health her whole life, smoking a pack or more of cigarettes a day, eats garbage constantly, drinks only Diet Coke, refuses exercise, and so on. I literally offered this woman water once after she almost passed out from walking 15 steps, and she gagged and said, "That's disgusting, water makes me nauseous. Get me my Diet Coke." So anyways, he insists on announcing it at our next visit, and holy turd you all. As soon as she heard it was another girl, tears welled in her eyes, and she started shaking her head back and forth and sobbing. She then started yelling at me, called me a hoe, and demanded I get out of her house. Dear husband immediately stands up and starts yelling at her, asking what her problem is, and that she needs to apologize to me and watch her mouth in front of her grandkids. She says they're broken whales. Not ours. Not ours. Those girls are not ours. She's a hoe. A loose woman. My son did not make those girls. I start crying hysterically and pick up my daughter, who is utterly confused as to why daddy is yelling at grandma and mommy is now crying. Mother-in-law then looks at me and starts yelling, "I let you get away with it the first time. I took you in as family. I allowed my son to believe he fathered that brat, but I will not allow it again." Dear husband is now freaking pissed, y'all. Something I should mention here is that, while dear husband prepared his whole life to having a son, he was thrown on his butt when our daughter was born. He never knew that he could love any girl in the world as much as he loves our daughter. He has made several comments over the past year and a half that he never knew how deep love could go before he held our baby girl. I can 100% assure you that if he had to save me, our daughter, or his mom, he'd save our daughter 10 over 10 times. He gets extremely angry and starts screaming at her that she is out of line, and how dare she call his daughter names. He then goes on to say that we are leaving, and until she comes to her senses, she will never see any of us again. She tried to say something more, but he cuts her off and yells at her, "By the way, Mom, I love that little girl more than I ever loved you," as he is shuttling us out the door. I cried and broke down, and told dear husband all the little comments she and her family have said to me when he's not around while we drive the 2 hours home. He was so angry at them all, and has been amazing in comforting me through it. We went no contact for a few months, and everything seemed to be going great. We blocked her and father-in-law's phone numbers, and hadn't heard from them, except through other relatives over Facebook, which we either told them to not attempt to relay messages from mother-in-law, or they would be blocked, or ignored them completely. Then, when I was nearing my due date, we decided to be the bigger person and reach out to her and father-in-law, and offer them a chance to make things right. She whined and whines that she misses dear husband and granddaughter. We agreed to meet for dinner at their house after a few weeks for a proper talk and apology from her. We agreed that daughter should not be present, so my sister was set to babysit her. We arrive, dinner is served, and we are trying to make small talk, when dear husband is like, "Yeah, Mom, this has all been nice, but we need to talk about what happened and the things you said last time we were here. I know and you know that you owe my wife an apology." Mother-in-law then looks at dear husband and says, "Yes, do you have the test?" Dear husband, what? Mother-in-law, the paternity test. I am not apologizing until I'm proven wrong. And we both know I'm right. You cannot be the father, and the fact that you have now apparently made 2 girls is ridiculous. Dear husband, what the heck is wrong with you? I start to cry and go to get up to grab my things and go to the car. Mother-in-law, oh no you don't. She shoots up, rounds the table and grabs my shirt, then proceeds to scream at me, "How dare you try to run away from this? You're a freaking whore and you need to own up to this problem." Dear husband screams at her to get her hands off of me and starts to make his way towards us. She then decides that I cannot be allowed to leave at any cost with her son, so she slaps me as hard as she can across my face. I push her arm away from me as I let out a scream from the shock of being slapped. Dear husband then gets in between me and his mom and starts to scream at her. He tells father-in-law to call the cops right now. Father-in-law ignores him and tries to calm mother-in-law down, insisting that we can deal with this. Dear husband is furious and I'm crying hysterically. He grabs my hand and we are making our way to the door when mother-in-law grabs a snow globe from a shelf and throws it directly at me, and it hits me right in the back of my head. It didn't shatter or anything, but it did end up hitting me on the base and cut my head open. I fell to my knees from the pain, and before dear husband can put together what just happened, she is grabbing anything she can find to throw in my direction. I'm on my knees on the ground holding my head with one hand and my belly with the other, being almost 9 months pregnant, as a cascade of random items are being thrown at me. Dear husband is screaming at the top of his lungs for her to stop, and she proceeds to try to get close enough to kick me as hard as she can. Thankfully, she is old and in bad health, so she loses momentum quickly. And as a last resort, dear husband pushes his mom and she falls back into a shelf by the front door, and he rushes me out. I'm crying and freaking out and yelling she kicked my stomach over and over, and he drives me to the hospital. I end up getting 6 stitches in my head and then being monitored in hospital for 4 days because she kicked my belly. The baby ended up being fine, and the hospital demanded we file a police report. We find out that when dear husband pushed his mom into the shelf, she ended up breaking 2 fingers and is claiming the excessive force hurt her neck very badly. Father-in-law called an ambulance for her, and she claimed that me and dear husband assaulted her in her doorway after they refused to let us in for a free dinner. Cops showed up and took our side of the story and compared our own report that we filed once at the hospital. They told us that mother-in-law is demanding to press charges against dear husband for assault, while we are pressing charges against her. So then my dear husband gets arrested, but then quickly released after father-in-law is forced to tell the truth, and mother-in-law then gets arrested. Father-in-law is now begging us to drop the charges as no one was hurt. What? I was freaking hurt, and my baby could have been hurt. And that we are being cruel to lock up an elderly woman. He insists that we drop the charges, say it was all a misunderstanding, and he puts mother-in-law in counseling. Thing is, because my injuries were documented in hospital, we literally can't drop the charges even if we were stupid enough to do so. Because it was filed through a hospital, there's no way it can just go away. We are currently at home waiting for baby number 2 to arrive. I am on a strict bed rest order, and dear husband has taken the week off of work to help pamper me and take care of our daughter. I asked dear husband if once baby number 2 arrives, we get paternity tests for both girls to send to his mom in jail as a huge FU. He thinks it's a hilarious idea and thinks we should also make copies and send them to all the relatives who were entertaining his mom's craziness, along with a written letter saying goodbye. That none of them will ever see us or his daughters again, and that he hopes they're all happy knowing that they've ruined any chance they had to have a relationship with him or our children ever again. We are so thankful that our baby girl is okay through all of this, and so relieved that we decided against bringing our older daughter to their house that night. We can only imagine what could have happened had she been struck with something. My due date is currently 8 days away, and I have an appointment the day of to discuss induction if she hasn't arrived by then, and baby number 1 was a week overdue, and I had to be induced last time. Any support for us is wonderful and greatly appreciated. I will update if any more craziness happens in the future. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Listen, in my area, there was a family who hadn't had a girl in 3 or 4 generations. When someone had a girl in the family, they didn't deny her. They paid for a damn billboard to brag about the first baby girl in generations. Still not normal per se, but a lot better than what you have had to go through. Don't bother with sending the paternity test results unless it's attached to a permanent restraining order, protecting your family from crazy. My husband's immediate and extended family is all boys, except 2 stepdaughters. We were the first in 2 generations to have a bio girl last year, and his parents cried from pure happiness. This woman is absolutely nuts. The billboard is chaotic good energy. OP's mother-in-law is just chaotic evil. Stay far away from those people and never look back. Send them the paternity test, give them a last FU, and continue to press charges. These people are monsters and don't deserve you or those beautiful daughters of yours. Do not accept their apologies and leave them to rot. Sorry, this sounds aggressive, I know, but holy hell, what is wrong these people? I don't think it sounds excessive at all. Had that kick been stronger and well-placed, that child could have died. Press charges, no contact. I personally wouldn't even send them copies of DNA evidence in case they try to file for grandparents' rights. No one needs that kind of stress. Just pretend like they don't exist. Good grief, the fact that he tried to get the charges dropped makes me wonder if his father-in-law breathed any non-toxic air since he's been with mother-in-law. She is truly one of the worst mother-in-laws I've read about here. Her father-in-law and all their flying monkeys do deserve to lose contact with your family. I am truly sorry for all that you've gone through with her. Now for the first update. I have read most of your guys' responses, and I want to thank you all for the kind words and support. I wish I could respond to everyone individually. The family who got a girl after several generations and they took out a billboard. Holy crap, do I envy the joy and pure welcoming this family got. For those of you with similar experiences, who had a girl after several generations whose family was overjoyed, that actually makes me feel so good for you all, as it makes me realize that most families out there are wonderful, supportive people, and it makes my heart happy. Thank you so much, kind strangers, for the awards. I cannot thank you enough. Father-in-law is making mother-in-law's bail this morning, and she will be released from holding. We are going through with filing a restraining order and a no-contact order. They have to be two separate filings in my state. We will receive a court date within a few weeks, so we have time to prepare. Dear husband spoke with an attorney this morning, and the attorney mentioned that it would be a great idea to file for a paternity test through the court. It would be a lot cheaper this way, and there can't be any question about the authenticity this way. It also won't be presented until it is used as evidence for the case. Dear husband has been nothing short of amazing. He is supportive and very protective of me and his girls, but I know he is having a hard time dealing with the emotions of his mother potentially serving a jail sentence. I really feel awful that this whole situation has happened this way. I feel guilt that maybe if I had done a paternity test with first daughter when the mean comments started, then all of this could have been prevented. Dear husband thinks I'm being too hard on myself. I didn't cause any of this, and he's confident that mother-in-law would have caused problems no matter what. It's all waiting for now. Waiting. Waiting for baby to arrive. Waiting for confirmation of the restraining and no contact orders. Waiting for court date. Waiting to see how much my hospital bill is going to cost us. Dear husband is out right now with oldest daughter getting me breakfast and some snacks. I cannot tell you all how much I love this man and the family we have made. Family is what you make it. You don't have to settle for disrespect and seeking approval. He has made me realize how much he truly loves and believes in me at a huge cost. I feel so bad that he now views his mother as a despicable stranger, and I hope that me and the girls can continue to fill this new void for him going forward. I will update in a few weeks once our new baby is here and once court stuff is done. Thank you again everyone for allowing me this platform for support. Now for the second update. Hello everyone. My original post gained quite a bit of attention and was then posted in a YouTube video, which made the moderators decide to take it down. For clarification, I don't care that it was shared outside of Reddit, as I have not given any specific names or details that could identify myself or others involved, nor will I ever give those details. So, that being said, I don't care if it's shared, and I'd appreciate it if mods could leave my posts up. I feel like I need to clarify this as I've received many messages of people angry and accusing me of deleting my original post when that was not the case. I even attempted to have it put back up without success. So, brief of my original is, I have two daughters, husband's side of the family hadn't had a girl born in generations, and mother-in-law came to the conclusion that I must have cheated on dear husband, as he can't make girls. She then attacks me while almost 9 months pregnant with our second daughter. Dear husband accidentally injures his mom while trying to protect me. Hospital calls police and we file a report. His mom files her own report, but it soon is clear that dear husband didn't do anything intentionally, just protecting me. Baby does end up being alright in the end, even after mother-in-law kicked me a handful of times while I was on the ground. The doctors explained it to me as, imagine putting an egg inside of a water balloon, then slapping it several times. It's hard to make contact with the actual egg and crack it, but still a scary situation. Yeah, that comparison didn't ease my mind at all, but they monitored me and the baby for a few days, and I was released and put on rest until she arrived. So, this is where it turns for the worst. We are home, and dear husband has been a rock, very supportive and comforting to me the whole time. We went no contact with mother-in-law and father-in-law, and I genuinely thought he was on my side. I had come up with the idea to do paternity tests on our girls and send them to mother-in-law as to get back at her, and it seemed like a great idea. We got in contact with a lawyer, and he suggested that we take the paternity tests through the court so we have it as evidence, and then the results couldn't be contested as fraudulent or fake. That sounded great, right? Well, over the next few days, dear husband got more and more depressed. He started trying to get me to entertain the idea of minimizing mother-in-law's actions and chalking up her behavior to old age. While I am aware that she's older, she's pretty sound-minded. I told him that she will be getting full screenings for her mental health when we go to court, and that while yes, she's old, she doesn't get to attack me and accuse me of horrible things and use her age as an excuse. If she's found to have some mental issues going on, then I can deal with that, but that doesn't mean I ever want to be around her or have her around my kids. A few days go by and I'm nearing my induction day because baby girl isn't making her entrance, and I find out that dear husband has been talking with father-in-law and mother-in-law behind my back. We get in a big fight, and he tells me that he still wants his mom to meet her granddaughter, and that we can put this aside until the baby is here. Then afterwards, once she's gotten to meet her, we can resume the legal issues. I am crying at this point, as I thought he was supporting me through this, but in reality, he caved in no less than 4 days to his mom. I reminded him that we have put in for a restraining order and no contact order, and that he has now broken it by contacting them. His response: well, the no contact order is issued to you, not me. And the restraining order hasn't been approved yet, so mother-in-law can come meet baby girl number 2 before we get approved without breaking any rules. All I could do was shake my head and cry. I put my foot down and said absolutely not, and I couldn't believe he'd let his mom around me or the baby after she could have killed one of us. He said that I was overreacting, as the baby was not injured, and she wasn't actually trying to hurt the baby, just me. What? She kicked my very pregnant belly repeatedly, after she threw a freaking snow globe at my head. We got in a huge fight about me not forgiving her and holding grudges and being unreasonable, and eventually he just left. Where did he go? Yep, his mom's house a few hours away. He then called me sobbing and told me that if I could see his mom right now, I'd understand. Apparently when he pushed her while she was assailing me, he indeed broke 2 of her fingers, and she sprained her neck when she fell back into a shelving unit. She's laid up on a sofa in her living room, can't walk, and in a severe depression. I should feel awful according to him. The least I could do is let her meet her new grandchild, and then figure out where to go from there. I'm so infuriated at this point, because not only has he retreated to his mom's house, he left me alone with our oldest daughter who is 2, while I'm supposed to be in bed rest, with freaking stitches in my head and an 8-pound baby in my uterus who refuses to come out, and I am so exhausted. He doesn't come home for the next 4 days until I'm supposed to check into the hospital for my scheduled induction. My sister comes to watch my oldest daughter, and dear husband takes me to the hospital for the induction. We get set up, and they are poking me with things, shoving arms up where they don't belong, pumping me with pitocin, and waiting to see if baby will come. He mostly sat in the room on his tablet, as I was admittedly pretty cold and grumpy with him still, and wasn't acknowledging him very much. Finally, I started making progress with labor and things were going well. Baby was starting to move down, and I was nearing the point where I needed to push. He did end up putting his tablet away and trying to get more involved. And at this point, I wasn't going to push the support away as I was literally trying to push a baby out of me with no medication. Finally, the baby started to crown, and dear husband looks at the baby's head, looks at the nurse standing next to the doctor and asks, "When do you do the paternity test?" I stopped mid-push, looked at my husband and screamed, "What the fuck?" The nurse was silent, looking back and forth between me and dear husband. The doctor then looks at dear husband and says, "Sir, we are here to deliver and take care of babies. If you have other personal relationship issues, you need to figure that out afterwards. We focus on baby and mom. This is not the place to ask questions like that." I immediately start crying hysterically and babbling stuff like, "It's not like that, it's his baby. His mom is psycho and stuff." I am so freaking mortified at the thought that these nurses and doctor now think there's a chance my baby isn't my husband's, and there's no way I can explain the situation to them. I immediately felt judged by the nurse and couldn't help but feel like I had been robbed of a beautiful moment. My mind completely shut down, and the short time between crowning and when baby comes out ended up taking an extremely long time because of how distraught I was. I was so angry at my husband. I asked him how could he do that to me? How could he ask that in front of the doctor and nurses, when he knows it's his daughter and it was my idea to do the tests in the first place? After the baby came out, I just held her and she was beautiful and perfect, but I was so distraught. I couldn't look at my husband, and I hate to admit this, but I wouldn't let him hold her. I was just so angry. He left, and when he came back about an hour later, he said that his mom wanted pictures of the baby, and he took out his phone and I smacked it out of his hand. He got angry and left. My sister had to pick us up from the hospital and took us home 2 days later. In my state, you have to take the baby back in 2 days after being home to do tests and a checkup to make sure baby is maintaining weight and that there's no obvious signs of neglect. So we took her in for the check and then went to a clinic to do the paternity test the same day. The next few days at home were awful. I can't even look at him, and he has avoided being around me or the baby for days. He barely has even looked at her and is practically ignoring our oldest daughter. We got in a fight because I was trying to breastfeed the baby, and my oldest daughter was crying because Netflix wasn't working, and I started crying because I was so overwhelmed. And he just looked at our daughter and said, "Mommy didn't pay the Netflix bill because she's mad at Grandma." I yelled at him to not say crap like that to a child. He said he just thought I didn't pay it because his mom uses our account at her house. I just forgot to pay it. It had nothing to do with that. He made several comments to our daughter over the next few days, like, "Daddy's going to go see Grandma. You can't come because Mommy hates Grandma." Then leave me with a hysterical 2-year-old and a newborn. I'm not going to lie, I know that I'm dealing with crazy hormones and this is a horrible patch, but I seriously considered telling him I wanted a divorce right there and then. He left. I tried my best to cool off, but I couldn't. I have actually convinced myself that I want a divorce over his behavior. Am I going crazy? Is this enough to seriously consider leaving him? We got the results for the paternity test 3 days later, and for anyone who ever doubted me, y'all can ride with mother-in-law to crazy town. He's the father. He cried and told me he never doubted it and that he knew he was the dad. I told him that we would do a second test on our oldest daughter, and that I was going to start packing our stuff and I was going to go move in with my sister. He bawled and said he didn't need one for our oldest daughter. I demanded we take one, as I would want it as proof for court whenever we get to have my case heard. I told him that I never cheated on anyone in my life, including him, and how much it hurt me that he said that in the hospital room and made the nurses and doctors think he doubted our daughter at all. He tried to apologize and hug me, but I pushed him away and told him he should leave while I packed up some things. My oldest daughter, my baby, and myself are now staying at my sister's house, and he has told me that he refuses to take the second paternity test for our oldest daughter and is going to make his mom write out a very long apology letter to me. He wants me to come home, but I just can't even look at him the same. I feel like all the love I had for him has been ripped away, and I feel so angry towards him. I'm just trying to take care of our girls, but he won't stop calling me. I told him he can see the girls anytime he wants, but he can't take them near his mom, and she is not allowed to be around them at all. I'm going to give myself a few weeks to sort out my feelings, but is this not enough to justify a divorce? I don't exactly want to go through with a divorce, but I really just can't even look at him the same, and I don't know how I could ever get past this. You can divorce him and his mother anytime you want. This is more than enough reason to do so. This is far more than enough. He's clearly showing you that his mommy is more important to him than you are. I don't think you're overreacting at all. He'll undoubtedly cry, plead, tell you that he's changed and will never see his mommy again, beg for another chance and cry again. Only you can decide if you want to give him another chance. The parental alienation he's using on your elder daughter would be enough for me never to try again, but that's me. But if you did decide that, I'd be putting several very clear conditions in place. 1. In order to give him another chance, he needs to completely cut off his parents permanently. No ifs, no buts, no questions. It's you or them for the rest of time. 2. He needs extensive personal therapy to deprogram those guilt buttons and manipulation techniques his mommy installed in him from birth. Like a year's weekly therapy before you'll even countenance trying again. 3. Once you do give the relationship another go, extensive couples therapy into the foreseeable future. He has breached your trust in so many ways that it's going to take you a long time to trust him again, and therapy will be vital to that. Also, making his mommy write an apology. That's about as useful as tits on a bull. Any apology which someone else has to make you do is no apology at all. And I don't think you can apologize for attacking someone, particularly a pregnant woman, and expect everything to go back to normal. Yeah, the writing an apology BS is just another instance of him trying to protect mommy from legal action. That woman should be in jail, period. She wasn't too old and frail to attack you, and she isn't too old and frail for prison. Wow, that was such an agonizing thing for me to read. I am so sorry. I would definitely give it some time, for your sake, to get over the crazy new mom hormones. But in my opinion, I would at least take a very long break from the relationship, with divorce on the table. Your husband justified straight-up abuse toward you, and there's nothing saying mother-in-law would not do it again, or take it out on the little one, God forbid. You should by all means make it clear to your husband that if he really cares about your marriage, then he has a lot of work to do. And both of you need to go to marriage counseling as soon as possible. Good luck and hugs. The first part ends here. Click the link in the description to watch the second and closing part.